Elena Rodriguez had mopped the floors of Fort Bragg's classified operations center for 8 years, her invisible presence allowing her to clean around the most sensitive military briefings while elite special forces officers discussed missions she wasn't supposed to understand. She kept her head down, wore long sleeves even in summer heat, and never spoke unless spoken to. But when a new Delta Force commander accidentally bumped into her while rushing to a crisis meeting, her rolled-up sleeve revealed a tattoo that made his blood run cold, a small, intricate design that only 12 people in the world were authorized to wear. The classified insignia of Task Force Omega, a unit so secret it didn't officially exist, and Elena Rodriguez was supposed to be dead. Welcome to Hidden Legends. Before we begin this powerful story of courage, skill, and forgotten heroism, tell me in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us make sure they are. The Classified Operations Center at Fort Bragg hummed with constant activity, a nerve center where America's most sensitive military operations were planned and coordinated. In this world of generals, colonels, and elite special forces operators, Elena Rodriguez moved like a ghost. At 45 years old, Elena had perfected the art of being nobody. She arrived at 0500 hours every morning, unlocked the custodial supply room with keys that had worn smooth from 8 years of use, and began her routine. Mop the briefing rooms, empty the classified document shredders, clean the coffee stations where officers discussed operations that could reshape global politics. Elena wore the same uniform every day. Dark blue coveralls, white sneakers that never squeaked on the polished floors, and long sleeves regardless of weather. Her black hair was always pulled back in a simple ponytail, no jewelry except a cheap digital watch. She was 5 feet 3 inches, unremarkable in every way, and that's exactly how she needed it. The officers barely noticed her. To them, she was part of the infrastructure, as essential and invisible as the air conditioning or the fluorescent lights. They discussed classified operations while she emptied their trash bins, planned covert missions while she refilled their coffee. Elena heard everything and remembered nothing, at least as far as anyone knew. Her security clearance was minimal, just enough to clean around sensitive areas without triggering protocol violations. Her background check had been flawless. Single mother from El Paso, no military connections, clean criminal record. The perfect invisible employee for the military's most visible secrets. But there were details that might have seemed odd to someone paying attention. Elena never flinched when explosions echoed from the training ranges. She moved through the facility with an efficiency that suggested more than familiarity. It was tactical awareness. And she always wore long sleeves, even during Fort Bragg's brutal summer heat. Colonel Marcus Webb had taken command of Delta Force's Classified Operations Division 3 weeks ago, and he was still adjusting to the pace of Fort Bragg's most secure facility. A 20-year veteran of special operations with deployments across 4 continents, Webb had earned his position through a combination of tactical brilliance and the kind of judgment that kept operators alive in situations where mistakes meant body bags. This Tuesday morning, Webb was rushing to an emergency briefing when his phone rang with updates from a situation developing in Eastern Europe. Multiple assets compromised, extraction teams standing by, and a narrow window to prevent a diplomatic catastrophe that could destabilize the entire region. Webb was moving fast, phone pressed to his ear, reading classified messages on his tablet while navigating the corridors of the operations center. He rounded the corner toward Briefing Room Alpha at a near run, his mind already 3 steps ahead to the tactical options they'd need to discuss. That's when he collided with Elena Rodriguez. The impact wasn't severe, but it was unexpected enough to knock Elena's cleaning cart sideways and send both of them stumbling. Webb immediately steadied himself and reached out to help her, his natural courtesy overriding the urgency of his mission. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. I wasn't watching where I—" Webb's words died in his throat. Elena's sleeve had been pushed up during the collision, revealing her forearm from wrist to elbow. And there, just below her shoulder, was a tattoo that made Webb's blood freeze in his veins. The tattoo was small, no larger than a silver dollar, but unmistakable to someone with Webb's clearance level. A stylized omega symbol intertwined with a trident, surrounded by 12 stars arranged in a specific pattern. Below it, in numbers so small they were barely legible, was a date, March 15, 2016. Webb had seen this insignia exactly once before in a classified briefing that had required 3 different security clearances just to attend. Task Force Omega, a unit so secret that its existence was compartmentalized to fewer than 50 people in the entire military hierarchy. An elite assassination and deep reconnaissance unit that handled the missions too sensitive for any official record. According to every classified document Webb had access to, Task Force Omega had been disbanded in 2016 after their final mission went catastrophically wrong. Every member of the unit had been declared killed in action or had their identities burned so completely that they ceased to exist on any official record. Elena Rodriguez, quietly mopping floors and staying invisible for 8 years, should have been among the dead. "Your sleeve," Webb said quietly, his voice carrying an authority that hadn't been there moments before. Elena looked down and saw what he had seen. For just a moment, her carefully constructed mask slipped, and Webb glimpsed something that had nothing to do with cleaning floors, a hardness, a competence, and a wariness that spoke of training and experience in places where mistakes were measured in lives lost. She quickly pulled her sleeve down, but the damage was done. "I need to get back to work," Elena said, her voice steady but carrying an undertone that suggested this conversation was over. "No," Webb replied, his tone making it clear this wasn't a suggestion. "You need to come with me." Webb led Elena to a secure briefing room 3 levels below the main operations center, a windowless space designed for conversations that required the highest levels of classification. He activated the electronic countermeasures that would prevent any surveillance equipment from functioning, then locked the door behind them. Elena sat in the chair across from Webb's desk, her hands folded in her lap, her expression giving away nothing. Webb studied her face, looking for tells. Nervousness, deception, fear. He found none of them. "Elena Rodriguez," Webb began, consulting a tablet that had materialized from nowhere. 45 years old, born in El Paso, Texas. Single mother, 1 daughter. Employed as custodial staff at Fort Bragg for 8 years. Clean background check, minimal security clearance. Webb looked up from the tablet. "Except that's all lies, isn't it?" Elena's expression didn't change. "I clean floors, Colonel. I don't know what you think you saw, but—" "Task Force Omega," Webb interrupted. 12-person unit, established 2014, disbanded 2016. Specialized in deep reconnaissance and targeted elimination of high-value targets in denied areas. Final mission: Operation Silent Thunder, Syria, March 15, 2016. Elena's composure cracked slightly at the mention of Silent Thunder, just enough for Webb to catch it. "The official report says the entire unit was killed in action," Webb continued. "Catastrophic mission failure, complete loss of personnel. But you're sitting here, Elena, with Omega's classified insignia tattooed on your arm. So either the official report is wrong, or you're not who you claim to be." Elena was quiet for a long moment, weighing her options. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a different quality, more controlled, more professional. "Colonel Webb, with respect, that insignia could be a fake. Military tattoos aren't exactly rare." "The date," Webb replied, "March 15, 2016. The exact date of Operation Silent Thunder. The exact date Task Force Omega was declared KIA. Someone with a fake tattoo wouldn't know that level of detail unless they were there," Elena finished quietly. Elena Rodriguez looked directly at Webb for the first time since entering the room. When she did, he saw not the invisible custodial worker, but someone else entirely, someone with the 1,000-yard stare of a combat veteran and the calculated awareness of a professional operative. "Staff Sergeant Elena Martinez, Task Force Omega," she said, her voice carrying the precision of someone giving a formal briefing. "Rodriguez is my current identity. Martinez died in Syria 8 years ago, along with 11 other operators who trusted their government to extract them when the mission went sideways." Webb leaned forward. "Tell me what really happened." Operation Silent Thunder was supposed to be simple, Elena began. Deep reconnaissance of a chemical weapons facility outside Aleppo. Intel suggested the site was lightly defended, minimal civilian presence. Get in, document everything, identify key personnel, get out, standard Omega protocol. But it wasn't standard, Webb observed. No, it wasn't. Elena's voice hardened. The intel was wrong, not incomplete, wrong, deliberately wrong. When we reached the facility, it wasn't a chemical weapons lab. It was a meeting between high-ranking Syrian officials and someone from the CIA. Webb felt his blood pressure spike. What? My team photographed everything before we were detected. Syrian forces, CIA operatives, and a lot of American equipment that wasn't supposed to exist. When we tried to extract, our communications were jammed, our extraction point was compromised, and Syrian forces were waiting for us with intelligence they couldn't have obtained without inside information. Elena paused, remembering. 11 of my teammates died fighting our way out of a trap that was set specifically for Task Force Omega. I survived because I was providing overwatch from a position the Syrians didn't know about. I watched my entire unit get eliminated by people who knew exactly where they would be and when they would be there. I made it to a backup extraction point that wasn't on our official plans, Elena continued. Called for pickup using emergency protocols. Instead of extraction, I got a message from command. Mission failed. All personnel KIA, Operation Silent Thunder never happened. Task Force Omega was being disbanded effective immediately. Webb was processing implications that threatened everything he thought he knew about military operations. They abandoned you. They erased me, Elena corrected. Elena Martinez was declared dead along with the rest of Omega. All records sealed, all evidence classified beyond any reasonable access. I was a ghost, officially and literally. How did you survive? I went underground, used skills Omega had taught me about creating new identities, staying invisible, blending into civilian populations. It took me 2 years to create Elena Rodriguez. Single mother with a daughter who died in a car accident, minimal digital footprint, clean background that would pass standard security checks. Webb was beginning to understand the scope of what he was hearing. You've been hiding at Fort Bragg for 8 years. I've been surviving at Fort Bragg for 8 years, Elena clarified. Cleaning floors around the same people who ordered my unit's assassination, listening to briefings about operations that used the same playbook that got my teammates killed. Staying invisible while trying to figure out who in the chain of command sold us out. And have you figured it out? Elena's smile was cold. Colonel, I've been cleaning floors in the Classified Operations Center for 8 years. I've heard every conversation, seen every classified document that passes through the shredders, memorized every face that's been involved in black operations since 2016. I know exactly who was responsible for Silent Thunder. Webb felt the ground shifting beneath everything he thought he understood about his chain of command. Who? That's a conversation for someone with a higher clearance level than yours, Colonel. Webb stared at Elena, processing what she'd told him. If she was telling the truth, then one of the military's most classified units had been betrayed by someone in their own command structure. If she was lying, then she was the most sophisticated infiltrator he'd ever encountered. Elena, he said finally, if what you're telling me is true, then you're sitting on information that could expose a conspiracy at the highest levels of military command. I'm sitting on information that could get me killed, Elena corrected. The same way it got my teammates killed. The difference is, now I know who to avoid and who to trust. And you trust me. Elena was quiet for a moment. Colonel Webb, I've been listening to your briefings for 3 weeks. You're either the most ethical officer I've encountered in 8 years, or you're the best actor I've ever seen. Either way, you're the first person I've told this story to since I arrived at Fort Bragg. Webb made a decision that would change both their lives. What do you need? I need to disappear again, Elena said. This conversation never happened. Elena Rodriguez continues to mop floors, and you forget you ever saw that tattoo. Or you help me finish what Task Force Omega started, find out who sold us out, why they did it, and make sure it never happens to another unit. Webb was quiet for a long time, weighing the implications. Finally, he looked up. Elena, what if I told you that 3 other special operations units have been compromised in the last 2 years? What if I told you that we've been looking for a pattern, and you might be the key to finding it? Elena's expression shifted slightly. I'd say that whoever sold out Omega is still active, still in a position to compromise operations, and still needs to be stopped. Then we're going to need to trust each other. Colonel, Elena said, standing up, trust is a luxury neither of us can afford. But cooperation? That we can manage? Webb extended his hand. Staff Sergeant Martinez, welcome back to active duty. Elena shook it. Unofficially, of course. Of course, Elena Rodriguez still needs to mop floors, but now she's going to be our most valuable intelligence asset. As Elena left the briefing room and returned to her custodial duties, Webb realized that the invisible woman who had been cleaning around their most sensitive operations was about to become the key to solving the biggest security breach in modern military history. Some secrets hide in plain sight, carried by people who seem ordinary but who have survived extraordinary betrayals. Elena Rodriguez had spent 8 years perfecting the art of being nobody, but now she was about to become the most important somebody in the fight against those who had sold out her unit and threatened every special operations team that followed. The tattoo that was supposed to mark her as dead had instead marked her as the survivor who would bring justice to those who thought they could erase the truth along with the people who carried it. So now I ask you, have you ever met someone who seemed invisible but was hiding an extraordinary past? Someone who served in silence while carrying the weight of betrayal and loss? Share their story in the comments, because at Hidden Legends, we believe that the greatest warriors often fight their most important battles not with weapons, but with the determination to survive and seek justice. If this story moved you, subscribe and help us honor those who serve in the shadows, forgotten by history, but never forgotten by the truth. We'll see you in the next one.